Connie.
Hello, Deb. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you safe? Are your friends safe in Vacationville or Vacaville or whatever it's called?
Vacaville. Well, all of Northern California is ablaze. You should see the Bay Area.
I know. I've seen it.
And
Believe me. We've been seeing it in New York. I know it's far from my son, but I keep calling him.
it is horrible. In fact, one of my friends who lives in Fairfield, which is sort of near Napa, who's a wheat and breeder judge, was evacuated.
Yeah.
A day after she put her house on the market. But fortunately, she and her dogs got back home. Her house sold, strangely enough, in a fire area. But we in Southern California, of course, are surrounded by fires. I am getting ash raining down.
Oh yeah. Drew said he can't work out outside anymore.
No, it is so smoky. The air is unhealthful for everybody everywhere. This morning I went up to a local park 10 minutes up the hill from me, literally, and trying to put the third virtual rally novice leg on my 17-month-old stinky boy. He cued on his first two legs, and we have a group that gets together and practices all the time, and we're filming. We had 6 people there with their dogs of all breeds, and nobody cued because for 2 hours on 2 different courses, the air was so horrible, and all of us were choking, and our dogs were choking and sniffing the ground with all the ash falling. I had my car door open, and literally the ash was falling into the interior of my car. When I got home, the exterior was covered. My bushes are covered. My AC condenser is covered. Everything is covered, and we are miles and miles and miles away.
You know, they showed the smoke plume in the sky, which actually was the reason why they had snow in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Because it has shifted the weather pattern so much that it has created 90 degrees in Colorado 2 days ago, and a snowstorm with 50-mile-an-hour winds yesterday or today. So it's why, as I'm sitting here watching all of this, Connie, you know where my brain's going, right?
Right.
I hope those people got their animals out.
Absolutely.
Well, here in New York, we had a television program. Hi, Patty. So glad to see you again. Hi, Sally. Honey, how are you? So I'll start because it is 7 and we're going to start. And I don't know why that's there, but in any event, I'm just going to close all these silly windows that are opening up so I can't see anybody's beautiful face. In New York, we're seeing the movies of the big plume of smoke over California. And we're also seeing the rescues being made by the big Hueys in campgrounds. So we in New York, who are not necessarily, well, maybe up in New York State, but here in the city, not necessarily camping aficionados. I know California and Oregon and probably the state of Washington, a lot of people camp. New York, not where I live, let's put it that way. And so I'm sitting there looking at the fires going, did you not think that there was going to be fire there? But I think that's how fast it moves.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. And people literally have 5 minutes to get out of their houses if the fire marshal or the fire department knocks on your door, and it's the middle of the night especially. I have all 3 crates for all 3 dogs in my car with all their leashes ready to go, just in case, God forbid, that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, people were driving in the fire. So Patty, you're on the West Coast too, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, Connie, I wish I had joined a little bit earlier. In 1996, I don't know if you were in California at the time.
Oh, since 1969, I've been in LA.
Oh, okay. The Harmony Grove fire in San Diego County was really the first big wildfire, at least in San Diego County at the time. And we lost our house and our barn and everything in that fire. And I rode my horse out. I didn't have a trailer at the time. Now I have a 4-stall barn with a 4-horse trailer.
Yep.
and
I
had my cats in the car and my dogs in the car, and with somebody else drove that. And so yeah, it's important.
It is important and it's scary. So
Yeah.
I want to introduce everyone. Geraldine, thank you for coming. We're going to go through and just introduce each other because this is a group that meets, well, Patty has just joined us for the second time. We're so glad. And Sally is an old timer along with Connie. And Geraldine, I'm so glad to see you. So let's start with Connie. Connie's in California and she has Wheatons. Go ahead, Connie.
I am in Metro LA in Rancho Palos Verdes. I am a longtime Wheaton breeder owner handler. I have 3 generations currently, grandmother to daughter to grandson. And of course, we're not doing anything except virtually now because everything's shut down. But we live in a very high fire danger area. I back onto a canyon. And the fire season is always, you know, a time of dread for all of us. So as we were just saying, my car is packed with all 3 dog crates, leashes, everything staged in the garage. We're ready to go.
Yeah, and Connie was one of the first people who joined my MAAP program way back when in 2014 or 15, I think, and made her MAAP plan right after her husband unfortunately had a stroke because she said, wow, I didn't realize that I needed somebody to take care of my animals while I was taking care of my husband.
Right.
So it was really, it's interesting. So Sally, introduce yourself. I know you're from Connecticut and you have a beautiful Irish setter named Athena.
I have a beautiful Irish setter named Athena, and unfortunately she's got seasonal allergies, is on, I don't know, medication, and just vomited. And I said, I'm going to join Deborah's tonight. I'll just let my husband deal with that.
That's right. I'm going to get a glass of wine and join Deborah tonight.
That's why I joined Deborah. And then my brother in Oregon just sent me horrible red photos of the sky, walking his lab. He's at level 2 in Oregon, which means a suitcase by the door,
yep,
wait for the call. And
yeah. Tell him that he needs to put a, you know, we talk about this all the time. Put that Post-it note on your dashboard because if God forbid something happens, people need to know where you are headed and where the dogs can go, or the horses, or the birds. And birds are really affected by smoke. So recognize if you have an animal that is totally susceptible to bad smoke. I mean, all of our dogs don't like smoke, let's put it that way. The horses don't either, but they're not as susceptible to dying from sucking down smoke. So yeah, I tell your brother if he has other animals than a dog that he can pop in the car with the air conditioner, he might want to leave a little bit earlier than when immediate evacuation is ready. So Patty, tell us a little bit about you, because I know you have horses, which of course makes me, and dogs and cats.
Right. No cats, too many coyotes, so we don't do cats anymore. 2 dogs, and I have 1 horse, but I board as many as 3. I never have more than 4 because I have a 4-stall barn, a 4-horse trailer, and I wanted to add, I mentioned, I think everybody heard about the wildfire in '96, and since then, I mean, we're like you, Connie, you're in a very high fire area, and the community has gotten together. We're a semi-rural area with a lot of horses and llamas and goats and all kinds of animals. So we as a community developed an evacuation plan. And if you don't have trailers, we've identified staging areas. And so we've tried to address all the issues that are fire related, that are safety issues, that assist people in getting their animals and themselves out in the event of an evacuation. Because like you said, Connie, it happens so fast.
So fast.
And you don't have a lot of time. So if you've got a plan, it makes life much, much easier.
It's the same
and
thing.
Safer.
Not with fire, but with flood in Hurricaneville. So we have hurricanes here on the East Coast. So all of a sudden, you know, you're not in trouble, and then all of a sudden the tide rises and you're in really deep trouble, no pun intended, but you really are in deep trouble.
Yeah.
So Geraldine, tell us a little bit about where you're from and what animals you have. You have to unmute yourself. Or I can unmute you. That's true. I can do that. There we go. Unmute.
Yeah, I had dogs woofing. So Patty and I are very good friends. And so I have 3 rescue dogs. I live in Vista, California, probably about 20 minutes from Patty. I'm not in a high risk area. I I've not ever had to evacuate. I have a foster dog at the moment. So that's really, I work from home. That's really about it for me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. No, they can talk. It's allowed. We allow them to talk. And they always talk when you're on the phone anyway. So this is basically on the phone. But I love that you put together, I think, Patty, last week I might have talked about it, but last week I was in the state of Washington giving a cul-de-sac of families like you talked about, your neighborhood. And they didn't have enough trailers for everyone to help each other or have a staging area or any of that. And I went in and helped them really draw that up and give everybody a plan so they knew what they were supposed to do, because if it's not in writing, it doesn't happen. So just for Geraldine's purposes, and bear with me, guys. So when you come to the MAP plan, the only thing I do is explain what MAAP stands for, and then we all chat about how we're going to make sure we do one. So the M stands for make a plan. So you have to have a plan in place. What am I going to do if something goes wrong, if I break my leg, if the fire comes, if the flood comes, if I get sick, what am I going to do? Or if somebody I love gets sick, because Connie, she really thought that it was all about her until her husband got sick, and then it was all about, oh my God, I need this to help me because I'm taking care of my husband. So you have to make a plan. And then from that plan, you pull out the address the needs of your pet. That's the second day, the first day, sorry. Address the needs of your pet, because you have rescue dogs that probably have little idiosyncrasies. I have Irish setters who have many idiosyncrasies. I know that Wheatons have a few.
Oh, gee, I could never imagine that.
So I know that our dogs have a few idiosyncrasies. I know that my dogs, some of them don't like turkey. They can't eat turkey. Some of them, most of mine don't run away, but if you have one that's like an escape artist, you need to let people know. So I always address everything that has to do with the pet. They might be on medication. This way, whoever is coming to help you, or who, you're going to give the dogs to if you need to, will know what's going on. And the other A is appointing those caregivers who are going to take care of your pets, which it can be one family member, and then it has to be somebody else. Because when I was, the reason I put this program together is because I broke my ankle in 2013. I had 9 dogs. So Geraldine, you can hang up now because I am crazy. I had 9 dogs, and nobody.
I warned her.
9 Irish setters.
9 Irish setters. Well, no, I have to back off, right, Sally? Because I had 7 Irish setters and 2 standard long-haired dachshunds. So they're only half a dog. So maybe I only had, I only had maybe 8 dogs, because you count the dachshunds as 1, I think. So anyway. And
I think that's probably still crazy.
Yeah, it still is. So I broke my ankle. I was actually out in the back in the snow because one of my Irish had gotten out. She had walked the length of 2 fences that I had paralleled and not zip tied closed. So she walked between the parallel, because that's how smart she is. And I said, it's a fresh snow. I can go out and I can find out where she got out. So I did, but on my way out and past, I slipped, fell, broke my ankle, then I had to walk back. So I had 4 acres. It was a long walk. It was a long, slippery walk out. It was a really long and slippery walk back. And I tell people who are my good friends that the angels told me not to go. They said, don't go. Bathe the dogs, do their nails, don't worry about her getting out. But I was hell-bent on leather. And then they said, okay, so if you don't want to go, take a phone. I didn't do that either. So I was really, I listen to my angels a lot more closely now. So I sat with this broken ankle for 8 weeks and built this plan. It was first called I'm Not Dead Yet, because we all make plans in our wills for what's going to happen to our animals. But if you're not dead, it doesn't come to fruition. So I always go, please, God. I sometimes give this program for a weekend, where people pull me in, I come together, everybody sets it up, it's great. And at the end, there'll be one person who walks up, Deborah, I am so glad you did this. I have all of this in my will. And I want to slam my head against the wall, because I'm like, I must have said 10 times, you need a pet trust outside your will, because you need something that's going to be active right away if something happens to you. Because if you're not dead yet, all the plans in your will don't come to fruition. And so the pet trust, you mentioned the MAP plan in the pet trust, you mentioned the MAP plan in your will, and then you don't have to pay your attorney ever again, because you just change the MAP plan. You don't change the will or the pet trust, you change the MAP plan. So let's see, it's make a plan, address the needs of your pet, appoint caregivers, only one can be a family member. And now with COVID, you have to have somebody who's next door, because my caregivers were in Connecticut, Maryland, and they couldn't get to New York. So I'm like, holy Toledo, who would have known? You know, sort of like my husband always says to people, this is his favorite joke. You know, anybody who said what they would be doing in 5 years got it wrong when they said it in 2015, because they did not know what they would be doing in 2020. They would be pandemic bound. So my husband that's his biggest joke. But it's true. We don't really realize that, you know, this is something we have to make a plan for. And I think last week I did say that I walked around my neighborhood to all the people with animals. So you can walk around your neighborhood with all the people with animals and just put a 3x5 card in their slot. And California's, you know, having a little bit of a bump again with COVID, saying, listen, if you need my help, I'm here. This is my address. This is my telephone number. I'll take care of your pets. Because, you know, to give is to receive. And I told them last week that the reason I did that was because I wanted to know there was somebody on my block who would take care of my dogs. And sure enough, people came and gave me their name and number and said, if something happens to you, I'll take care of your dogs. And then the last piece for Geraldine's purposes is publish. Because if you make this plan and you appoint the caregivers and you address the needs of your pet, if you don't give that document to your attorney, your veterinarian, the caregivers, and you don't have something somewhere published that says, I have a plan and this is the person to call, which should be a caregiver, could be your attorney, somebody, right up on your refrigerator, on your door, because if they have to look for it, it's not getting done. And so Geraldine, I've been here since March 31st. I started these calls on March 31st. We've gone from, you know, several people to many, many people to few people, but I do it every Wednesday because it creates this community where we know that we have all our bases covered for our beloved animals. I just drove my young Irish setter to Virginia to go to hunting school because he was losing his mind in my house. So I sent him to hunting school. And on my dashboard was 3 telephone numbers. And they were staged from when I left my home to when I was in like the DC, Maryland area till when I was in Virginia. And then and I didn't have them on the way back, so it wasn't up on the way back. But in case I had a car accident. Because we've had several articles, which I'm sure all of you have had in your local newspapers, that said, you know, we had to remove these dogs from the house or the cat from the house in hazmat suits because their owner perished from COVID. And there's times when people, I remember in 9/11, that was a big thing, that many animals were left unattended for many, many, many days, sometimes weeks, because people lived alone and no one knew they had pets. And of course, they didn't make a plan to not come home. With COVID, some people are going into the hospital thinking, I don't feel well, and they don't come out and they haven't made a plan. And even if they did make a plan, here in New York, there were 2 instances where they had asked the neighbor to watch the cat. And the neighbor just said after 2 weeks, I can't do this anymore. You know, I just can't do this. And they had no redundancy. So that's why I always say you have to have 3, because I'll use you guys as examples. So Connie is my first person. She'll come and take care of the dogs. But if she can't, then she knows about Patty. And she knows Patty will try to come. And if Patty can't come, then Rose will come. And then if Rose can't come, Sally will come. And last but not least, Geraldine will come. And lastly, absolutely, is the rescue. So if you've gotten your dogs from a rescue, if you've gotten your dogs from a breeder, you need to make sure that they are in that plan and they know to come and get your dogs. And for horses, I am like a broken record, because horses are not easy to move. I'm sure you know that. I'm so proud of you, Patty, that you have a 4-stall trailer, because most people have 4 horses in a 2-stall trailer because they'll come back and get them. And the unfortunate thing is you might not be able to.
Probably not.
Yeah. So when I gave that program in Oregon to the group, I said to them, how many of you have 2 cars? And everybody raised their hand. I said, how many of you have hitches on both your cars? And nobody's hand went up. And they said, yeah, but my car's a Prius. I said, I get it. I said, but if your neighbor isn't home, if they're at work and the wind shifts, you would put a trailer on your Prius and put the 2 smallest horses in the back of that trailer and drive slowly down the hill. I said, because you want to get those horses to safety. And as you said, Patty, you rode the horse to safety. I mean, how many people rode their horses to the beach last year?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was amazing. They had this whole big, you know, the best beach on whatever, Malibu.
Malibu.
Full of horses. You know, Malibu is full of horses. And I said, because these people did not make a MAP plan. They did not know that they had to leave early. And I know it's hard to leave with horses, but when I see those pictures, and you guys probably know much better, and let me know, you know, are the horses getting off the mountains? Are they getting out of the areas?
Well, let me tell you as an example, we're in an equestrian area. In fact, there are four incorporated cities and one unincorporated area on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. The town I live in, Rancho Palos Verdes, is the largest, and it kind of meanders around. But the town immediately up the hill, literally a couple of blocks from me, is Rolling Hills Estates, and that is extremely horsey. And in fact, one of my MAP caregivers, who's the president of the Welsh Springer Spaniel Club of SoCal, lives up there. She just unfortunately had to put her 15-year-old boy down, but she has 2 Welshies, but 2 horses. But to get to her house, it is winding up the side of the mountain overlooking the blue Pacific. And she's in a gated community. It's a 2-lane road on a very steep hillside. And in fact, when all of us obedience buddies go up to her house in the wintertime when it's dark and it's raining, we are all sweating just driving down the hill from her house at night. So I cannot imagine trying to get 2 dogs, let alone a couple of horses, down that
trailer
hill, in the middle of a fire, in a trailer with, you know, a 2-lane road and everybody else trying to evacuate at the same time. That is a recipe for disaster.
Well, I have to say, Patty will probably agree with me. People who drive horse trailers are fearless.
Yeah.
They're fearless.
Yeah.
I drove
And
a
they're
horse
very
trailer.
giving.
Yeah, I drove a horse trailer for 15 years on the back of my dog show van. How crazy was that? But I put the hitch on the back of my dog show van, and it, you know, they're a crazy bunch, and I know it, and I know that they will do anything to save their horses. But I'm trying to get them to be a little proactive as opposed to reactive, because the horses will appreciate that.
Yeah. You know, it's sort of a community of extremes, because I have an immediate neighbor whose husband was a firefighter for his entire career. And when a fire happens, she goes into a panic. She doesn't know what to do because he's gone. So I can kind of appreciate that.
Yeah, right.
But
she knows the fear.
Yeah, but she still doesn't have the proper trailer. She has a truck. She becomes paralyzed with fear. Yeah. And then we have the other end of the spectrum where we have people who come from long distances with trailers to help people and get them out. And you saw a lot of stories like that, I'm sure, Connie, when
absolutely.
San Luis Rey Downs went up in flames.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
They just let the horses go. And one of the horses unfortunately ran back in. But horses will get out of the way. I mean, if worse comes to worse, you know, if you let them go early. If you shut
the stall door, they will. But a lot of horses did die, but they had trailers lined up for a long way trying to get in to bring horses back out. So there's a very benevolent community there too, to help people out when they can.
I love that. And I know Connie and Sally and probably Geraldine with her rescue group, you know, everybody will come to the aid of their countrymen. So that's always, I love that your community put something together to make sure you have staging areas, because you have to do it before the fear sets in. So your neighbor might not be able to function, but the neighbors know how to function. So they'll, you know, let's call her Mary Lou. So they'll just walk Mary Lou through what she needs to do to get the horses out if her husband's not there. It is a team effort. When you have animals, it is a team effort.
Yeah.
And what's really terrific too is that all the county governments around here immediately open up their fairgrounds, their racetracks, their park and rec, places, and they say these are evacuation areas for all the animals, and they take all livestock, all species.
And that is great. That is great because, you know, now with COVID, so there are 3 things that we've heard here on the East Coast, and I'd love to hear from you, Geraldine, as well, that's just been an issue, the heat. So they're fighting fires in 120-degree heat. They are, I think 2 or 3 of the firemen were injured one severely injured, at least from New York news reports,
Yeah,
because they had a shelter in place. They had to pull those things over them, those fire safety shelters over them. I can't even imagine. I really can't. I cringe. And we're all sort of hoping for the best, and then the wind blows and blows the other way, and you're really like, holy Toledo, because it looks to me as if it's pretty random event out there.
It absolutely is. And the wind does shift unbelievably. I have a weather vane on the top of my house, and yesterday we were getting a very strong sea breeze, and in fact it was very, very foggy and cool. Today it's blowing due west, so it's blowing all the fire from Bobcat fire in the San Gabriel Valley and ultimately San Bernardino out to sea this way, and that's why we're getting all the smoke and ash.
I have never heard that at San Bernardino was subjected to so much risk, but it really is. And Geraldine, you said you're not in a high risk area. Neither is my son. He's in North Hollywood. But he does send me the ash report, as Connie just did, because he's also getting the fallout from the fire. So we all have to be worried about our animals, as I said, especially birds, and koi. So you have your koi.
Ash, God. Yeah, I already thought about that.
Yeah. So I do koi too, because I had koi, so I know that they are very susceptible to things that are airborne. So you really need to make sure that you fish those little suckers out as well. And what are you going to do with them? They need really big buckets because they use up the oxygen really quickly. I have friends in Long Beach, which hopefully will not be affected, but they have beautiful koi. But people, it's really, that's why I do this every week, because I want to say, did you know? And they go, holy Toledo, I didn't know that. Oh my God, I didn't think of that. Because I love my horse friends. You are like the only horse friend I have, Patty, that's sort of taken, and I know that everyone comes to the aid of their countrymen. In purebred dogs, that's the way it is too. But wouldn't you like to know that you can get off the hill and get somewhere and you've got it planned out? It just gives you a little bit, as opposed to your neighbor who's like very frozen. You have a little bit of an idea, and maybe that would be something that would give her peace of mind. So this is what I do first, and this is what I do second, because it really is important. And if you're not home, making sure that you've created a plan for someone to implement for you. So Geraldine, I don't know if you work from home. You probably do now because of COVID. But if you worked away from home, and something came up, you're like, oh my God, do I have somebody who's going to come into my house and take my pets and make sure that they're safe? And last year at this time when the fires started, that's all I talked about was, you go to work, you better make friends with your neighbor, because if that wind shifts, you are going to have your neighbor go in and take your pets, because you're never going to make it home. And you might make it home, but you won't be allowed up the hill.
Exactly. And let me tell you a really harrowing story. Years ago, one of my Wheatons, who is now an angel, he died in 2016, was a fabulous stock dog. And Wheatons are eligible for herding titles under AKC and other organizations. And he was a very talented boy. And I used to train with an AKC herding judge up in the North San Fernando Valley. We used to knock off for the summer because it was beastly hot, but we would train the other parts of the year. Well, one year in October, it was 2009, we had, at that time, the record all-time horrible fire in Los Angeles County, the Station Fire, which burned 250,000 acres, including most of the Angeles National Forest, where the Bobcat Fire is right now. And so my herding instructor, Judy, who was divorced, had her border collie and her Belgian turf, and she had to get 56 head of sheep out. It's a canyon road going up to her ranch. She said she was on 15 acres, and she had a trailer that could only take 36 sheep at a time, and she had 56. So she had 20 that she had to leave behind, and she was calling frantically to find a place that would take sheep. A lot of places would only take horses. So she finally found a place out in Ventura County that would take her sheep. So she got the first 36 out, and both LA County Fire and Cal Fire and the U.S. Forest Service were all up there, you know, fighting the fire as she was going out of the canyon. She comes back with an empty trailer after she dumped the first 36 head of sheep. They won't let her back in. And she said, I've got 20 head of sheep. I've got to get out there. Well, ma'am, you know, you're going to be at risk. And she said, I will take that risk. And so she and her 2 dogs went up the mountain as it's blazing. And all of us who were her students were absolutely, I mean, we were frantic. And she's emailing us back and forth. And she got the 20 out, but just barely. And it burned right down to her property line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though she had total brush clearance, she was in a canyon. And it was hellacious, literally hellacious.
So it's interesting. There's a group, if you want to learn more about a guy who's doing some great work with clearing the dry brush, his name is William Simpson. And if you Google the Wild Horse Fire Brigade, so if you Google that after we hang up, you'll learn about how he saved almost all of the top of the Pacific Rim where everybody goes and hikes and things, because he picked up and brought back a bunch of wild horses that he let go on his property. He has hundreds of acres. And because he has so many horses there, and there's enough room for like all the horses that are in BLM's possession, if they go up there, there's more than enough room for them, and they're natural predators, so the numbers will stay down. And the fire stopped at his property lines, because the horses have kept the trees high and the grass low. And so he said it was like the perfect fire break, because they had created the fire break. He had a few singed areas, but no huge fire. So when you were talking about this with the sheep, I'm sitting there going, yep, sheep would probably be a good fire break as well if she had
Exactly.
that we're going to take the land down. And probably it stopped at her property line.
It
She
didn't
have enough,
right at her
enough
property.
fuel. Right. They didn't have enough fuel.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said to work these wild horses up into the mountains where they can live and they're happy, to take all that dry brush that's now, oh my God, we're watching it here in New York, and it is unbelievable. So before I close, because it's 7:30 and I respect everybody's time, if you have any questions, pop them up now. And if you want to get in touch with me, let me know. But is there anything that you guys want to talk about before we leave, so that I can make sure I answer anybody's question? Great. So that means that you're going to, at least today, the one takeaway from today, I know that some of you have it up, but some of you might not, especially not Geraldine, because she's new. I want to sign up in your front door, back door, in your window, saying, in case of emergency, do not take my dogs to a shelter, take my dogs to, and give them 3 numbers, three numbers. One of a neighbor that they can call, so the neighbor can say, yeah, I'll take care of the dogs until Geraldine comes back. And then 2 other people, and let the neighbor know who the 2 other people are, in case the neighbor really doesn't want to take care of your dog for more than 24 hours. Because if you have that up in the window of your home, or on your, and in your refrigerator, if God forbid something happens to you, Animal Care and Control will not take your pet to the shelter. A woman who broke her hip here in New York, a woman who broke her hip at a beautiful Afghan, 9 years old, had it since it was a little bitty puppy. Broke her hip and was taken to the hospital, and she's being rolled out to the ambulance. Her dog is being walked out of her house, and she goes, where's my dog going? And she was like 72. And this was an article, you can look it up in, I think, the New York Post, because that's one of the rags here, but it works. And they said, well, we'll hold on to your dog until you get out of the hospital. Well, they really didn't mean that, because they only had to hold her dog for about 7 days. And then they released it to an Afghan rescue who adopted it out. And she got out of the hospital a month later from rehab in the hospital. She went to get her dog at Animal Care and Control, and they said, well, we gave it to rescue, and rescue adopted it out, because they tried to call her on her cell phone, and she didn't have her cell phone, because some of us don't live with our cell phone. I don't happen to be one of them, but some people really, truly go to the hospital and may not have their cell phone. So she wasn't contacted. The dog was adopted out. And as most of you know, if a dog is adopted through rescue, they do not tell you where the dog is. So here she is. She broke her hip. She thought her dog was going to somewhere safe until she got out because she hadn't made a MAP plan. And the dog was adopted out. And now she has to spend a lot of money. And likely, I can tell you, because the lawyers who make these contracts for rescues are really smart, likely will not prevail. And so she won't get her 9-year-old Afghan back. So if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. I do this every week because I want all of you to make sure that not only you live peacefully and happily with your animals, and I'm very jealous, and I need pictures of your horses or dogs because I love them. I put them up in my on my page, or I put them up on my PowerPoints with your permission to show, you know, the various kinds of dogs, people, and horses and birds and things that people have. But I really want to make sure that everybody stays safe. It's my mission, and that's why I do this every week. And I love when people come back. So please, Geraldine, if you found this to be valuable and you liked being with the crew, come back next Wednesday. Patty, thank you so much for coming back. Connie, you are like my, you know, my heart. And Sally, you know.
Me too.
And look at my background. Obviously, I'm the East Coast one.
Right.
It's pitch black here.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, electricity go out, Sally?
So depressing. It's 7:30 and it's like midnight.
I know.
Listen, we're having rolling blackouts. We had one for 90 minutes on Sunday night. It was 104 that day, and my AC went boop at 6:15.
Yeah.
And didn't come back on until 7:45, and I was dying, and my poor dogs were dying.
I have to tell you, my son in North Hollywood has only a window air conditioner, and he can get his apartment to 80 degrees.
Ay, ay, ay.
So I'm not visiting anytime soon. I mean, COVID makes that easy, but I'm not visiting anytime soon, I can tell you. Thank you all so much for coming. Remember, make a plan, address the needs of your pet, point caregivers, and make sure you publish that plan, because if you don't publish it with your attorney or vet and the caregivers, it won't be carried out, and you need redundancy because that's key. So anyway, until next Wednesday, everybody stay safe. I am going to pray for everybody in California, which is like everyone with Sally and I, and Rose, she's not in California, and stay safe. Love you guys.
Thank you, Deborah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.